Hello guys, tonight we are going to talk about why most indie horror films are way better than most mainstream horror films. Apparently, a lot of people don't even know what indie even stands for. I'll tell you. Indie stands for independent, and when a website has like a film listed under maybe limited theater release, that usually means it is an indie film or an art house film, which is mostly the same thing. Move on to the real topic. Why indie films are better than mainstream horror films. Even though mainstream horror films like The Ring, The Grudge, The Hills Have Eyes, the remake of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the reboot of Evil Dead, Annabelle, Krampus, both The Conjuring 1 and 2. We won't be talking about those films. The mainstream horror films we will be talking about are just awful. Before we talk about those films, let's talk about some awesome indie horror films. The first film we have is The Babadook. This film, about a mother and her son fighting against a very creepy demon, is just, well, weird, but in a very good way. It has some amazing creature and sound effects, topped off by a great cast. The next movie on our list is The Witch. This film, which I got to see in one of the local theaters around here, is creepy and awesome at the same time. The movie is about a 16th century family who are living in the wilderness of New England and are being terrorized by an elderly witch. Like most indie films, this one has some weird moments, but is just so good that you can probably overlook the weird moments. The next movie is Green Room. This film, which I had to wait until it came out on Blu-ray to watch, was, at least to me, worth the wait. In this film, members of a band are being terrorized by sadistic neo-Nazis. The next film we have is The Unkindness of Ravens. The sad thing is, I didn't get to see this movie, but all I know about this film is that it's about a homeless man who is fighting his own demons in the mountains of Scotland. The next film is Carnage Park. Another film I had to wait until it came out to Blu-ray to watch it, but this one was such a love letter to fans of classic Grindhouse movies. In this film, two bank robbers hold a girl hostage, but what they don't know is that they are being hunted by a psychotic sniper out for blood. The next movie is 31. This movie is one of Rob Zombie's best. It is about 5 carnival workers who have been kidnapped and forced to play a sadistic game where they are hunted by demented clowns. The next film we have is The Invitation. This movie is beautiful, smart, and long. Very long, but that's okay. The film is about a man who is invited to a dinner party that is not what all it seems. The next movie we have is called Sick Boy. Another movie I have not seen yet is about a girl who takes a babysitting job and finds out there is something evil living in the basement of the house. Forgive me if I butcher the name on this one. The next film is Armistice. Again, another movie I have not seen yet. The movie is about a Royal Marine awakens to find himself imprisoned and forced to fight to the death against inhuman opponents again and again. The next film is Absentia. Again, another movie I have not yet seen. The movie is about a woman and her sister who begin to link a mysterious tunnel to a series of disappearances, including that of her own husband. The next movie is The House of the Devil. Finally, a movie I've seen and loved. It is a love letter to 70s and 80s slasher films. The movie is about a girl who takes a babysitting job surrounded by mysterious circumstances before she finds out her clients are hiding a terrifying secret. Now, before we round up this video, here are a few honorable mentions. We got the good films out of the way. Now it's time we talk about some mainstream horror movies. The real horror movies. The ones that scared most because of how bad they are. But there aren't as many as the indie films. So that's kind of good. The first awful movie we have is the Friday the 13th remake. This is just a very bland and pointless remake that came out of nowhere, and when I watched it, I was just so bored. The next awful movies are Paranormal Activity 2 and 4. These sequels to the Paranormal Activity series are just awful and boring. When I watched the second one, I really was just thinking, what the hell did I just watch? It was just all over the place and really didn't make sense or even stick with the story. It's the same with the fourth one too, so I kind of really don't have that much to say about the fourth one. The next awful movie is The Den. This spin-off of the awesome film Unfriended was not so awesome. The story is something that we see all the time, and it was just made even more awful. And in my opinion, and I think a lot of people's opinion, Unfriended is way better. I know a lot of people like this movie because I guess a lot of people didn't like Unfriended. But I just don't see how. This movie is so bland. And Unfriended was actually something that we haven't seen at all. It's a fresh story. So yeah, I don't know how. The next crap fest is The Forest. This movie could have been good, except for the fact that the main character was just unlikable. But that was it. The story was fine at best, the ghosts in the movie were cool, and the other characters were likable. I know a lot of people didn't like this movie because they thought it was offensive, because I guess the Japanese government is apparently trying to stop the suicides in this forest from happening, but here's just a little tricky thing about that. If you ask anyone who knows a lot about unsolved mysteries, they'll tell you that the suicides in that forest are mostly an unsolved mystery. No one knows how they're happening, so if you can't even find out what the reason is, then good luck trying to stop it. Finally, the last one. Oh my god, I cannot wait to go to sleep. This is, speaking of sleep, last one we have is the remake of A Nightmare on Elm Street. The only good thing about this film is Freddy Krueger. We actually have a very creepy Freddy Krueger, just as creepy as the one from the very original film. That's it. That's the only good thing I can say about this film. Everything else is as follows. Has a very poor story. The other actors in the film couldn't really act, and the CGI effects were just so terrible. But there's no surprise there, because CGI is very terrible. With that being said, to me, indie horror films at least, are way better than mainstream horror films. They have better stories, better characters, better effects, etc. Most mainstream horror films have terrible characters, terrible stories, awful effects, etc. So, I don't know if this changed your mind or not. This is actually my first scripted episode of Grindhouse. So yeah, It's safe to assume that me, and probably you too, kind of think that indie films are probably way better. Alright, guys, that was it for tonight. I'll see you guys next Friday. Good night.